6:31 or 6:32. So
Oh, are we? Okay. Okay.
You got the extreme close-up going there, Councilman.
Yeah, Eric Cromwell, what, gosh, I haven't seen you for, what, a week? 2
A
weeks?
week.
Do you have a beard, or is that your
I
shirt?
do. Temporary, just temporary.
Good. I mean, yeah, I know. I wish I could do away with the close-up, but I don't know. Have I done away with it to a degree?
yes, to a degree.
To a degree, okay. I guess if
Okay.
I held it, if I held it across the room, well,
There you go. No, you're good.
yeah, that's not it.
Okay, we're gonna go live and say hello to everybody. I think so. You ready, Councilman? We're gonna just get started, and I think we're gonna let OCE kick things off.
Sure.
Very good.
Good evening. Thank you for attending Baltimore County Executive's third budget town hall for District 3, hosted by your County Executive, Johnny Olszewski Jr., and your County Councilman, Wade Koch. I am Pete Chris-Cumis, the Director of the Executive's Office of Community Engagement, and I'm pleased to introduce to you Carmen Christiana, my colleague and your Community Outreach Coordinator.
Thank you, Pete. Good evening. My name is Carmen Christiana, and I am the District 3 Outreach Coordinator for the County Executive's Office of Community Engagement. I am delighted to be here and appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you, Carmen. Many of you may know Carmen as your point of contact for constituent inquiries from your community meetings or contacting the County Executive's Office. In a moment, I will turn it over to Councilman Koch for brief remarks, but first, I want to take a moment to thank those who submitted their questions in advance. The County Executive, one of the department heads on the call, or the Councilman will answer as many of your budget-related questions as possible tonight. For those who are watching through social media, you may submit your budget-related questions in the comments section. They will be answered after the County Executive's budget presentation. If we cannot answer your question tonight, Carmen Christiana, your District 3 representative, will follow up with you. And now it is my honor and privilege to welcome your Councilman, Councilman Wade Koch.
Pete, thank you very much. I hope that there's a lot of people in the audience this evening, because this is your opportunity to give your input to the budget that the County Executive is putting together. There might be areas where you think maybe the county's wasting money. You can help us by letting us know. And there may be programs that you're interested in seeing or seeing expanded. We all know about Delaney High School. We need a new Delaney. Sports fields in northern Baltimore County, Senior Citizen Center in northern Baltimore County. So there's a lot out there that we need. But I've got to say that, of course, our county executive took over at a time when there was a deficit in the county. He handled it, and then COVID comes along. And we all know the tremendous efforts that the county executive and county made to help people during the pandemic. And, my office was full of calls. We were able to, I think, deal with all the issues. And I want to thank the county executive and the governor for their leadership during this COVID crisis. Now, Pete, do you want me to introduce the county executive?
That is correct, Councilman.
That is correct. You see, I read my orders, and I just wanted to make sure. Okay, it's my honor to introduce our county executive, John Olszewski, who I guess now I've known for about 10, 15 years. And we work well together. We do have some disagreements because we're different parties, but we make an honest effort to work together to solve problems. And, we always don't agree. But one thing I do know is I'm right. And I always tell him if I think he's wrong. And he takes it rather well. But anyhow, it's a real pleasure to work with the county executive who's interested in addressing the problems of Baltimore County and working with anyone who wants to seriously look at issues and resolve issues. So it's my honor to introduce our county executive, Johnny Olszewski. John?
Thanks, Councilman. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the partnership that we have had in our many years of knowing each other and serving alongside each other in the legislature, and now as executive and councilman. And good evening to everyone out there in Baltimore County District 3. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's great to be with you, even if it's just virtually. In addition to being joined by Councilman Catch, we are also thrilled to have our County Administrative Officer, Stacy Rogers, as well as every department in Baltimore County being represented, most of whom are represented by their director or deputy director. So thanks to all of the county leadership for being here. It's great to be here with them, your councilman, and all of you as we continue to work together to build a better Baltimore County for all of us. Over the past 2 years, with your help and in partnership with all of you, we have set new standards in local government here in Baltimore County and a better way of doing things. Last year, we came together to start our town hall series under a very different set of circumstances. But working with you, we had been able to really make a lot of progress. We closed comprehensively an $81 million structural deficit that we inherited. We put the county's fiscal house in order, and we maintained our AAA bond ratings, something that was recently reaffirmed just a few weeks ago and is especially noteworthy given that we did it in the midst of a global pandemic. As a result, we were on stronger footing when we last came together. We were positioned for progress. We had enacted unprecedented ethics and accountability reforms. We had released public dashboards. We had been bringing new levels of transparency to county government, and we were set to build upon our record funding for schools, along with other investments in our communities. But then, abruptly, COVID-19 changed our entire way of life. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we were forced to work with Councilman Catch and the entire county council to cut about $100 million of spending. So last year, we passed a budget that focused on our essentials: education, public safety, and those critical services our residents have come to depend upon. We also began preparing for this unprecedented crisis, the likes of which none of us have seen before. Exactly 1 year ago today, we had a solemn occasion and recognized the first death and the first passing of one of our residents in response to COVID-19. And since then, every day has been a tragic reminder of the pain and loss we have felt throughout this crisis. We have lost over 1,200 of our neighbors and loved ones, and our heart breaks for every one that we've lost. Since this pandemic started, we've also had over 52,000 confirmed cases. We know that countless residents have lost their jobs or businesses, with over 245,000 unemployment insurance claims made here in Baltimore County. But in partnership with the county council, with Councilman Catch and his colleagues, we stepped up quickly and built a COVID-19 testing operation, providing over 440,000 free tests that don't require a doctor's note. We started doing PPE distribution, and we created a robust contact tracing operation. But we've also stepped up to meet the immense needs from our communities, because that's what local government is here for. And we are meeting those needs. For example, we've distributed over 15 million meals in collaboration with our school system and public library. We've also done this in partnership with the Maryland Food Bank and businesses like H&S Bakery and our local Baltimore County farmers. Through our eviction prevention program, we've given out over $5 million to help over 1,400 households stay in their place of residence. In June, we started phase 1 of that eviction prevention program, distributing $1.2 million to nearly 485 households. In phase 2, we distributed $5 million and partnered with nonprofits like the Community Assistance Network and Catholic Charities to distribute those funds even more efficiently. As we were going through those initial phases, we found that the majority of our applications for rental assistance came from 9 zip codes that had both a high rate of housing instability and poverty, in addition to a high rate of COVID-19 transmission. So we data to drive our response as we have in other parts of the government. And now, thanks to an innovative partnership with the United Way of Central Maryland, we are providing an additional $4.2 million to help over 900 households in those communities stay housed. And we look forward to doing more on this front. Proud to announce the county recently secured nearly $25 million from the U.S. Treasury Department through its Emergency Rental Assistance Program to help at least another 1,250 county renters. We're also working closely and diligently to close the digital divide, providing 6 months of Comcast Internet Essentials to 11,000 of our households. We created a program to help our low-income families pay for childcare, supporting those who have had school-age children engage in remote learning this past year. Also creating a similar program to support our county employees who have school-age children engaged in remote learning. We're doing all that we can to help our neighbors, residents, and businesses alike get to the other side of this crisis. That's why we've also provided millions of dollars to help restaurants and other businesses stay open, and millions more to keep our staff at these locations and customers alike safe. We've given out over 1,350 grants across 6 different programs for a total of over $21 million. Over 13 million of that amount has gone directly to restaurants. And through our small business reimbursement grant program, we've helped nearly 300 of our small businesses install equipment to prevent the spread of COVID-19. We've distributed over $4 million as part of our small business relief grant program. And over 50% of all grants have been awarded to minority and women-owned firms. In total, the grant volume we've processed is about 20 times our usual workload, which we've done quickly and efficiently without using any additional staff resources. And now, with the arrival of the vaccine, we are starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. Our first vaccine was given on December 23rd, and since then, Baltimore County has consistently been a leader in the state among number of residents vaccinated for local jurisdictions. Just for example, we are capable of administering up to 1,000 doses per hour just at our clinic at the state fairgrounds. To date, over 183,000 of our residents have been vaccinated. That's about 22%. And over 1 in 10, 12%, have now received both of their doses, 105,000 of our residents. But we know that we have more work to do, and that's why we are continuing our efforts to vaccinate every resident as quickly as we can. Doing things like expanding our access to vaccination clinics, opening one at CCBC Essex, which followed the second clinic at our Randallstown Community Center. We're also now partnering with Uber to ensure anyone without transportation can get to a county-run clinic. In addition, our health and fire departments are working to vaccinate those who can't leave their homes, and we will continue to do all that we can to make sure anyone who wants a vaccine can get one. But we do ask for your patience because we continually receive a limited number of vaccines. I mentioned we can do 1,000 doses an hour just at our fairground location, but we only get currently about 5,000 doses per week. So we have so much more capacity than we're getting doses. We continue to push for them and ask for them, and as we get them, we'll be effective in distributing them. But in the meantime, we encourage residents to do all that they can to still stop the spread and save lives by wearing your masks and practicing social distancing. Even during this COVID-19 crisis, we've continued our work to strengthen our communities, taking significant actions to reform county government and move Baltimore County forward. And I'm very proud of what we've done these last 2 years. In the 3rd District, we've dedicated over $17 million towards the improvement of our schools, including $10 million to install air conditioning at Delaney High School. Additionally, we have initial planning funds for the next steps at Delaney High School. And we have also budgeted millions more for maintenance and repairs at schools across the district. We will be including $2.5 million for a new chiller at Loch Raven High School and $1.2 million for kitchen equipment at Cockeysville Middle. And moving forward, we'll keep doing all that we can to meet the needs of every student and every community. We've also budgeted millions of dollars for improvements to Rec and Parks facilities in D3. And we will have a record $35 million for spending in our upcoming capital budget, thanks to the voters who approved our most recent budget referenda on the 2020 ballot. We're looking at about $2 million for improvements for Cromwell Valley Park, which is currently in the design phase, improvements that include a parking expansion, banatorium renovation and a new trail, and a new turf field at County Home Park. We have an obligation to maintain this infrastructure, and we will continue to provide these critical services to our residents. We've also budgeted hundreds of millions of dollars to maintain and improve our water and sewer infrastructure. as well as keeping our roads and bridges safe for drivers and pedestrians. That includes $14 million for water main improvements along York Road. And we remain committed to working with you to do all that we can to ensure your communities continue to thrive. We know that one challenge faced by residents during this pandemic has been the digital divide. So in addition to the Internet Essentials, we're also working to do what we can to embark on a multi-year capital plan to expand rural broadband and help close serviceability issues over the next 3 to 4 years. For example, our Office of Information Technology and Comcast are currently partnering on a state grant application for almost $4 million to expand access to about 850 homes in the northwest part of Baltimore County. We submitted that proposal back in January, and awards are expected later this month. I mentioned education in District 3, but across Baltimore County, we're proud that we provided back-to-back years of record funding for public education. That includes $240 million towards shovel-ready school construction projects. And coupled with state funding, these funds will allow us to complete the county's Schools for Our Future program and then begin to address other long-term needs. But we know that we needed state support to advance those projects, which is why I am so glad to have supported and have seen the General Assembly override the governor's veto of the blueprint for Maryland's future, which is now also unlocking $462 million for school construction under the Built to Learn Act. The blueprint for Maryland's future will help us in Baltimore County raise teacher pay, make key investments inside the classroom, and ensure our children have the resources they need to succeed. As we continue to strengthen those schools, we are also working with BCPS and a nationally recognized consultant, Canon Design, to develop a long-term plan to address our school construction needs. Throughout this process and in collaboration with all of you, we plan to form a long-term plan that ensures that every child, every teacher, and every family across Baltimore County has access to a world-class learning environment. As we invest in our educational system, we also are doing all that we can to keep our community safe. And I'm proud to report that Baltimore County remains a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. Violent crime has declined over the past year, continuing a years-long trend downward. So I want to thank Chief Hyatt and her team at the Baltimore County Police Department for their efforts. Last year, we shared our update to our crime fighting strategy, including the use of enhanced data and analytics, increasing our crime prevention efforts in hotspots across Baltimore County, and participating in the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. We are thrilled to start to see the benefits of having these measures in place. And now you can also track our crime data using new dashboards that we released just last month. Those can be found at baltimorecountymd.gov/BCStat. This past summer, we also heard calls for justice across our country and here in Baltimore County. And we stepped up to answer that call, becoming the first jurisdiction in the region to take a major step forward. With the bipartisan Smart Policing Act, Baltimore County has banned chokeholds, required additional de-escalation and implicit bias training, and prevented ourselves from hiring officers who have prior records of misconduct. We've also increased transparency in our police department, creating data dashboards that tracks the use of force by and complaints against law enforcement officers, and by establishing the county's first policy to require the release of body camera footage. Baltimore County is also tackling the opioid epidemic head-on, and as we continue to have the second highest number of opioid deaths in the state, it's an imperative for us. Now, we're not seeing the dramatic spikes that other jurisdictions have seen during this pandemic, but we continue to lose far too many of our loved ones to addiction. That's why in our first year, we hired the county's first ever opioid strategy coordinator and began developing a comprehensive plan to end this epidemic. Our efforts now include expanding harm reduction services like drug drop boxes and increasing access to treatment, with a new center in Owings Mills and another one currently in the planning stages. We're also partnering with Shepherd Pratt to develop a hub and spoke model for treatment in Baltimore County. This will be focused on individuals who have dually diagnosed disorders, struggling both with mental health issues and addiction challenges. And we will continue to look at all options to increase access to treatment. Residents also deserve a Baltimore County that is vibrant and livable for generations, which is why we're enacting sustainable practices to protect our planet. And it's why we're instilling a culture of sustainability throughout county government. Over the past year, we started developing our first ever greenhouse gas inventory and countywide climate action plan. It's why we restarted our glass recycling program that was suspended back in 2013. And it's why we're pursuing new innovations like at the Easton Sanitary Landfill, converting methane gas to renewable energy, offsetting an estimated 21 million kilowatt hours of county electric usage every year. We're also committed to increasing funding for rec and parks and ag preservation. Our capital budget includes a record $35 million in bonds for recreation and parks, as we said earlier, but we've also increased our funding for agricultural preservation. We've doubled our bond referenda from 2 to 4 million this year just passed, and we intend to grow it to 5 million in 2022 and to 6 million in 2024. We've also issued an executive order requiring new county buildings to be built to LEED standards, and we're partnering with BG&E to install 28 electric vehicle charging stations across county property, continuing to do all that we can to ensure that we leave behind a more sustainable county for future generations. But we know that our commitment to sustainability has to also be reflected in how we approach transportation, thinking bigger and more creatively about our approach there. That's why in Towson, we're preparing to launch the Towson Circulator later this year, something we hope to replicate in communities across Baltimore County. In Middle River, we recently received our second county transit-oriented development designation at the site of the former aircraft manufacturing plant, which will be about a 2 million square foot redevelopment project. To reduce congestion, we're also exploring other ways to move forward and imagine new possibilities. In addition to dense transit-oriented developments, we're also looking at issues like microtransit. And we remain committed to maintaining our existing roadways and keeping our residents safe, which is why we plan to continue our record funding for road resurfacing and traffic calming projects. Infrastructure is more than just transportation. We know also that the policies governing our water system are decades old and in need of reform. That's why we're partnering with Baltimore City on a comprehensive review, and I look forward to working with Mayor Scott to modernize these critical services. Another area in need of action is waste disposal. We know that trash going to our landfills has increased from 300 tons per day to over 1,400 tons per day. That's why in October, we created a solid waste working group to develop a new 5-year solid waste plan, and we issued a survey to gather input from residents about our trash and recycling services. That work group is now finalizing its recommendations and will have a report due and issued in the near future. We're committed to doing all that we can to keep our communities sustainable and vibrant, and we're proud of the work that we're doing to support our communities and our main streets, investing both in our neighborhoods and our young people in particular. We're proud that we expanded our summer youth employment program even amid a pandemic, with a 44% increase from 194 students to 280, giving them new experiences, skills, and connections. And we look forward to growing this program even further in the years ahead. We're currently in the construction process of 2 new PAL centers, and across Baltimore County, we continue to make investments to revitalize our main streets. Towson continues to thrive, and last year was named a Maryland Main Street affiliate. Reisterstown has been named our county's second Main Street, and Catonsville became our county's first ever arts and entertainment district. In Eastern Baltimore County, Trade Point Atlantic continues to thrive as one of the biggest e-commerce hubs in the country. I'm also very, very proud to work with Councilman Catch and his colleagues to lead a Baltimore County that is more open, transparent, and accountable than ever before. Together, we passed unprecedented ethics reforms, including lobbying reform, a now successful charter amendment to begin the process of establishing public financing of local elections, and creating the county's first ever inspector general. Last year, we took a number of steps to further heighten accountability and transparency in Baltimore County, launching BC Stat, our data-driven performance management system, creating data dashboards to increase accountability in county services, creating Open Checkbook, an expansion of our open budget platform that now allows you to track county spending down to the contract. We worked with the council to move work sessions later in the day. We created a 311 line, and we established an Office of Community Engagement to ensure that every district has a dedicated representative. And earlier you met Carmen Christiana, your D3 coordinator. Recently, we launched the county's first ever enterprise-wide operational efficiency study. This is an opportunity for us to rethink government operations, improve our services, and also find meaningful savings. And we will continue doing all that we can to listen to you and work with our employees to make Baltimore County more transparent and accountable, especially as we head into our recovery from COVID-19. Because after facing an unprecedented crisis like this, we have to work together to pick up the pieces and rebuild. And as we rebuild, we want to make sure that we are focusing on the disparities that have always been there. We know that we can't just rebuild our economy. We have to improve it. It's a recovery that should be holistic and that takes bold actions to strengthen our business community, support our residents, and address inequities in our communities. So as we do that recovery work, we'll be putting an emphasis on supporting small and independent businesses on our main streets. We will target resources to those businesses that were hit hardest, like restaurants, movie theaters, and event venues. Some industries we know, such as hospitality and tourism, bore the brunt of this pandemic's economic impact. So we will think creatively about how we support them. We'll also work to develop a robust tourism strategy to highlight our great homegrown assets right here in Baltimore County, putting all options on the table to support our business community, whether it's leveraging loan guarantees, investing in our main streets and business corridors, or expanding our small business service center. We know that recovery works best when it's done in partnership and with an open dialogue. That's why we look forward to hearing from you and from the business community about ideas you'd like us to explore. When this pandemic ends, we're resolved to come back stronger than ever with family supporting jobs. It's why we're investing in programs like the Job Connector program and our College Promise program. To continue our recovery, the county is also committed to continuing to help our residents meet their basic needs through continued eviction prevention and food distribution efforts. So next month, I'll be introducing my fiscal year 22 budget to Councilman Catch and the County Council. The council must approve that budget by the end of May. As you know, you have an important role to play. So I look forward to hearing from you this evening about your priorities for our shared budget. Together, we can set our shared priorities, we can plan our recovery from this crisis, and we can ensure that we are positioned to come out stronger on the other side of this crisis. So with that, I will open the floor. I believe Pete will go over the plan for answering questions. Councilman Catch should feel free to join in as we're going through these. But again, looking forward to your questions. Thanks to everybody for coming out tonight, and we'll get to the questions, Pete.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Before we start with questions, I again want to thank those who submitted their questions in advance. The County Executive will answer as many questions as possible. Just a reminder for those watching through social media, you can ask a question in the comment section and the County Executive will do his best to answer them live. If we cannot answer that question tonight, Carmen Christiana, your outreach coordinator, will follow up with you. Mr. County Executive, your first question this evening is from Christina. She'd like to discuss the results of the February 7th Waste Management Survey. She is interested in the county starting up residential pickup of compostable trash, including food scraps. Right now, there is no sustainability or easy way for these items to be disposed of. She is very concerned about climate change, and the composting would help mitigate the dangers. She is strongly in favor of the county starting some sort of food scrap pickup.
Well, thanks, Christina. We share your commitment to addressing the impacts of climate change, and we know that food scraps and composting is an important element of that solution. I don't know that the results have been made public yet, but I'm going to let our administrative officer talk about the work of the solid waste group. There's a lot of, I think, opportunity there, and we look forward to finalizing that work and moving on it. So, Madam Mayo.
Thank you, Mr. CE, and thank you for the wonderful question. We were so pleased as a part of our solid waste work group to have a community survey with over 7,000 respondents, the largest response rate in our region for these types of surveys. With respect to composting, we have looked at that part of the consideration of our solid waste products. We are making some final decisions about certain aspects of our collection and disposal. The survey itself, the results will be a part of our comprehensive plan that Mr. CE mentioned, and it will be out at the latter part of April. So we do look forward to enhancing our capacity to recycle and enhancing capacity to compost, because we have a lot of residents in our communities that already compost. So those are things that we definitely looked at, and our report will be out in the latter part of April.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayo. The next question comes in from Jason. Many have written in their support of a new Delaney High School. I have 3 children who will one day attend Delaney High School. I would like Delaney to be on the list to have the building torn down and rebuilt. It is not suitable for proper learning for our town and the kids in it.
Well, thank you very much, Jason, for your leadership and advocacy, along with so many others. I know the councilman certainly has been a fierce advocate for construction updates to both Towson and Delaney. And we have been, I'm a former teacher. It's very personal to me. I've listened to the concerns. I've toured the buildings. And I have a better understanding of a lot of the challenges at Delaney and our schools across the county now. I've always been a longstanding advocate. I called for significant reinvestment in capital dollars and also coming up with a 10-year plan to address those needs. So that's why I supported that independent process. And we have some initial results that did not initially recommend new construction, but we know that these schools are unique and deserve additional focus, investment. So I know that the planning board voted to continue studying as part of the fiscal budget and the budget we're reviewing. And so I am pleased to have dedicated $500,000 to advance the feasibility of both Towson and Delaney, along with the councilman. And we will continue to continue with those feasibility reviews and studies, even as the My iPass or the long-term capital planning work and conversations continue. But at the end of the day, we know that our students don't have the world-class education that they need and deserve, and I am committed to ensuring that they have that with all of you. So, Councilman, I know this has been an important issue for you if you wanted to add anything as well.
Absolutely. I've been a fierce advocate for Delaney for years. And, all of us know the shape of the building, the brown water, the electrified fence, the foundation having problems. So we need a new Delaney so that our students today and in the future will have a facility that will allow them to continue to have a world-class education. Now, Delaney is one of the best high schools in Baltimore County, and we cannot wait too long to get a new building, because if we don't get an adequate facility for our students, it could show up in the performance of our students, and we cannot let that happen. I was in Annapolis last year, and I was going around lobbying for Delaney, and one of the legislators who I've known for years, I walked in and she said, "Oh, don't talk about Delaney again. Please, please don't do this to me." So I talked about Delaney. And but everything is, I think things are looking good. We've had so many things happen that would have set us back, but we've overcome them. I can't thank enough Friends of Delaney for all they've done to keep this issue alive, and working with them has certainly been a real honor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question. Every year we see more and more development, but we rarely see more parks and protected open space for public use. How long can we continue this way? Recent polls have confirmed that a vast majority of Maryland residents want more open space. So what is it going to take? Our waterways are eroding faster than ever, our bay is suffering, and many other resources are at risk. It is as if we are in death spiral and no one cares. This is our only planet. Please put your arms out and together make it stop. Private citizens cannot make a dent in the process as much as we try. We need you to prioritize the environment through more of our tax money going to open space land, preservation, and parkland, and through sound, smart planning.
Couldn't agree more. And I think I'd like to do is let Director Johnson just say a few words about my push to her about creating more park and protected open space for public use and our vision for moving forward in the years ahead here. But absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. That was a great question. I promise my mother nor my father sent that question in. We have really been working hard in recreation and parks at the county executive's direction. We have received the largest infusion of capital dollars that we can ever remember receiving with the $35 million bond referendum. In addition to that, we had an unexpended amount of program open space funding, and that was for acquisition. And the county executive has convened meetings. We were meeting every week. Now we're down to every 2 weeks because we've moved the ball forward in so many directions and acquiring new parkland, which is something that wasn't really done a lot in the past. So our team at Recreation and Parks and the county residents should be very happy about the work that we're doing moving forward. We meet with the county executive, Madam AO, and the executive team every other week now to move barriers and get rid of red tape so that we can move forward with those acquisitions. And it seems like every council meeting, actually, in the past couple of council meetings, we've had projects move forward so that the county can acquire new park land. So we are very excited about it. We're also looking at it holistically with our master plan process, which will be a transparent process, which will include community input, where you all will be voting on what's important to you between trails, open space, recreational facilities, but more to come on that. Thank you so very much.
And I'll also just add that we're also proud to continue to have, in Baltimore County has a proud history of the urban-rural demarcation line, the URDL, where we really limit overdevelopment and sprawl. And I know that's been a priority of the councilman as well to make sure that the agricultural parts of Baltimore County remain as such. I give him a lot of credit for his advocacy on those efforts as well.
Mr. County Executive, number one, Northern Baltimore County desperately needs more recreation facilities. We don't have any. The Hereford Rec Council has no fields, no indoor facility. And I know the administration gets tired of hearing from me about this issue, but the Hereford Rec Council spends $65,000 a year renting space because we don't have any in Northern Baltimore County. When I tell people that, they think of Northern Baltimore County open. We have preserved probably 70,000 acres now, but there is no recreation fields in North County. And this is something we have got to have, because the need is just growing and growing. Our schools have numerous sports programs. They're bursting at the seams. The schools are not letting rec and parks use the fields as much as they used to, because our schools are growing in population and they're involved in more sports activities. So I urge all of you and the county executive and the director of Rec and Parks, let's get the fields done. We have 2 pieces of land that we can build the fields on, and an indoor recreation facility. It's getting pretty desperate. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. And we welcome the continued conversation. That's the point of these town halls. And, you know, as we said, we had a challenging couple of first years, but we're hopeful to work with you and the community to keep moving the ball forward, pardon the pun, on these new fields that are needed in northern Baltimore County.
Thank you. The next two questions come from Eric. It's two-part, so just bear with me here. The county needs to update and revise its laws concerning development and adequate public facilities. Recently, a county task force on adequate public facilities and schools issued a final report on changes to the way the new development is evaluated. I support many of these recommendations issued by the task force, but to date, neither the administration nor the council has issued any further support or comment. Some of the recommendations that should be addressed include removing the 150% of capacity in the current regulations and replacing the capacity ceiling at 100%, changing how the number of students projected from the new development is determined and eliminated the ability to consider adjacent schools' capacities and determine the impact of the new development. And the second part of the question is, his second topic relates to a question he has regarding the recent passed federal COVID-19 relief bill. He is wondering how much money the county anticipates to receive from the federal government and where that money will be spent.
Very good. Well, I will say that we obviously want to be balancing the needs of our communities with development, regardless of where it is in Baltimore County. And in addition to having strong management practices that it goes in the right places, we need to also make sure that we do have, in fact, capacity in our schools. We talked earlier tonight that there are not only facility challenges at places like Delaney, but also capacity struggles across Baltimore County. And so we are reviewing the findings, and we want to make sure that we are taking a holistic approach to addressing these challenges, whether it's working with the Board of Education to use our existing capacity and actually redistrict, to provide new and additions to our schools, have new schools, create additions, renovate our schools, and then also look at these capacity criteria. The other thing I can say is we actually passed in our first year impact fees, which is for the first time in Baltimore County, we were an outlier, and we actually created a source to help fund moving forward some of these needs. But we want to make sure that we're looking holistically at it. I look forward to working with the council as we review the study and find a way forward there. On your second question, before opening up to the councilman for anything he wants to add, we expect somewhere between $150 and $160 million in direct federal aid under the most recent package passed. We certainly expect that we're going to continue spending some of those resources on the health response, the food distribution, supporting our employees. We also anticipate looking at an economic recovery subcabinet to help us build a path forward. And we hope to have information on public meetings for that soon. But we would encourage residents to also, in addition to the official budget process, help us think about how we can strategically leverage these additional federal dollars to be smart and strategic about how we invest them. I know there was the question about schools. To the extent we do spend more on schools, unless we specifically designate it as a one-time expense, it does become part of the new maintenance effort and a requirement for us. What's encouraging, though, is in addition to the money that we're getting, there are other sources of funds. So higher education gets its own funding. K-12 schools will get additional resources in addition to what we're getting. So I hope that gets at most of your question there. And I don't know if the councilman has anything he wants to add, but wanted to try to get to those two questions as comprehensively as possible.
Thank you, Johnny. Like John, I was a math teacher in the Baltimore County Public Schools. He was social studies. Obviously, my subject's more important. And my wife was a social studies teacher as well. I was at Ridgely. She was at Hereford. And let me just say that last year at this time, we were going through the CZMP process, which is the opportunity for each district to rezone. And I had, I think, around 90 issues in my district And I came up with a criteria which kept in mind school capacity and roads, etc., open space, all of that. And I determined early on that I was not going to approve any apartments or large condo developments in Lutherville, Timonium, Cockeysville, and that I would keep northern Baltimore County agriculture and not approve anything with development, because I want to protect our farming ability. We have a huge amount of prime and productive soil in northern Baltimore County, and prime and productive soil is by definition the best quality soil in the country. Only a few states have it. We have it. And you cannot, I've had it suggested to me by people who would like to build, well, why don't you just move it and we'll build on that property? Well, you can't. If you move it, it will not be sustained in a different environment. And the other thing I did is I did approve some apartments in the Hunt Valley area adjacent to the light rail. And that way, people will be able to get to work using public transportation and not clog our roads. The other thing is, because our schools are overcrowded, I had the developers agree to limit the number of 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, and also limit the number of apartments to be constructed. And it was I think a very fruitful process. And I've set in place a criteria that I think is going to benefit our district and the county.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm going to jump over to a question off of Facebook from Brenda. How can community members apply for positions on the many panels established by Baltimore County?
Great question. We welcome our residents to express their interest in joining our boards and commissions. We have a lot of opportunities. I'm going to actually ask that staff in the comments on wherever you're watching us tonight, actually put that information about where people can apply. But there's a website where you can just basically give us your information, tell us your background, what areas of interest you have, and we use that information to connect you to the boards and commissions that we have. It's just one more way, and that actually didn't exist before our administration. So it's one more way where we are trying to be proactive and provide those opportunities. So if staff could make sure that they put that in the chat function of our watching tonight, we will make sure that we connect with you. We'd love to have you apply. Looking forward to it, Brett. Thank you.
Same here. I have appointments to many boards and commissions, and when they become vacant, I ask people to, if they're interested, to please contact me. So that's a great question. And so those interested, please apply.
Thank you. Next question is from Jen. She is reaching out regarding adding additional revenue to the budget through backyard poultry licensing. Currently, the single acre restriction in place has prevented many families from being able to raise chickens legally in Baltimore County. These families are not looking to run a huge farm from their yard. They are looking to adopt a few hens as pets to entertain and educate their families and bring a food source to the dining tables. Chickens do not require a lot of space to thrive. It is recommended to account for 6 to 10 square feet per bird. Dogs require more space than that and produce more waste and noise than chickens, but yet people are permitted to have 3 dogs on their property. No matter how big or small the plot may be, hens are not allowed. They will eat bugs, slugs, and anything that moves, including mice, and their waste is 100% composable and fantastic for gardens. If the single acre restriction could be lowered to a quarter of an acre or lower, I believe there would be a substantial amount of money that could be made from the flock licenses and permit fees.
So I have not heard much about this issue before. I've not tracked it very closely. I believe it would require a change in zoning law, so it would involve the council's involvement. Certainly our agencies are happy to work with the council and with you to look at it. But I certainly appreciate the feedback and the idea. Councilman, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, but
yeah, when I was first elected in 2014, a commission had just issued a report on this very issue. And periodically people write me and ask me to please put in legislation to lower the lot size in order to grow chickens. And I take a look at I've taken a look at a lot of literature on this subject, and I can tell you that raising chickens is not real easy. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility. And in a recent letter I sent out, I guess about 3 weeks ago, I listed all the resources that I had to inform people that should this pass, what needs to be done to make sure the chickens are healthy, the eggs are healthy, that we don't have any problem with disease, etc. And yeah, I'm not ready to commit on this issue. I'd like to see us. I don't know if we would need any inspectors should we enact this legislation. Inspectors to make sure that if there is a problem, that we as a county know about it, so that we can send out some people who understand what you have to do to raise chickens, and to advise people what they need to do to clear up disease that a chicken might have, or dispose of the waste. It sounds like an easy thing to do. It's not so easy. And we've got to, of course, put first the health of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Next question is from John. Beside the safe return to schools, he feels nothing is more important to the children of this county and the return from this pandemic to have good service and facilities for recreational and sporting activities. With that comes a need for capital improvements to what we already have. Our Rec Council has been involved in a significant capital improvement that has been unfortunately delayed by what appears to be the need to go through 3 different agencies of county government: Rec and Parks, Property Management, and Permits, Approvals, and Inspections. The permit part appears to have caused a significant delay in getting the needs of our children addressed. What can be done to improve the process so that all of us can serve our children more efficiently?
So thanks, John. We believe, investing in our kids and providing those opportunities are critical. And so we are happy to work with you on whatever issues you're facing. There are certainly reasons why we have to go through review processes to make sure that things are going through the right way. But I don't know if Director Johnson wants to just weigh in, but we obviously want to work with you to find a way forward if we can on these issues.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Absolutely. I think that's Mr. Cox who sent that in, and he's talking about County Home Turf Field. And you are absolutely correct, Mr. Cox. It seems like it is a lengthy process. We are working with property management to see where we can cut down on that time frame, because right now we're scheduled to go start design, which will end in November, and that's an awful time to try and install turf fields. So we'd have to wait until March, and it would be finished next August. But Deb and I have committed to discuss it and see where we can cut down on the time frame. So we will try to work on that and shorten that time frame. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your question.
Thanks, Rosalind.
The next question comes in from Renee. County residents need preserved land. They need open space to recreate, exercise, and just get sunshine and fresh air. They need to preserve farmland to provide fresh local meat and produce that isn't disrupted by supply chain problems and to maintain the economy. They need to know the water they drink is clean and safe. We greatly appreciate the energy and effort and money the county has provided to preserve land. We are greatly encouraged by the county's continued efforts to preserve land and to support local land trusts. We also know it's tempting when money gets tight to cut funding for our land preservation. Please continue investing in the future of the county by continuing to support land preservation. Remember, an acre preserved is an acre preserved forever.
Absolutely. Land preservation is a priority of mine. It's why we mentioned earlier we are ramping up our investment in addition to the program open space money and the bond referenda for Rec and Park investment. So we are fully supportive of that. I think maybe I'll let Director Lafferty planning to speak a little bit to that process and to our commitment generally of preserving land here in Baltimore County.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, and thanks for that great question. I think your last comment was really on mark. Is that one, we're not growing land anymore. We have a limited supply of land, and we need to make sure that we do our very best to preserve what we have. As the county executive indicated in his earlier remarks, we have $4 million available now and ramping up to $6 million in 2026 for land preservation. 13 farms recently have been submitted to the county council for in order for us to make offers to purchase their easements and put them beyond development activity. We have 5 rural legacy areas that are going to the county council within the next month. Again, trying to encourage and support land preservation issues. We support and fund the Land Preservation Trust, which has just done awesome work throughout the county. And we know that we're going to have to continue that level of support. It is so critical that we maintain not only the agricultural heritage that the county has, but also to find ways that the land itself can be preserved. And frankly, in working with the Department of Environmental Protection and Sustainability, as they're protecting forested lands in the north part of the county, it's an equally important aspect because, you know, we have forested properties that are really valuable not only to address issues of climate change, but also to protect us against future flooding problems. So I can only reiterate your comment that, you know, protecting the lands really are so critical for our future. So thank you for that.
Mr. County Executive, as a member of the state legislature, as a member of the county council, I continue to be an advocate for land preservation. This county has a goal of 80,000 acres in preservation, next year. And I don't think we're going to meet that goal, but we're going to be pretty close to it. I'm sure we're going to be in excess of 70,000 acres. And these goals are very, very important. Number one, I talked about the soil, the growing conditions in northern Baltimore County, and they must be preserved so that we can sustain the growth of food. And secondly, nearly 1.6 million people have public water and most of it is coming from the reservoirs in northern Baltimore County. And we must keep that water clean, free of contaminants. And I'm dedicated to doing both. And I talked earlier about rezoning. And basically, I consider northern Baltimore County to be off. We're not going to be developing up there as long as I'm the councilman from that district, because we must preserve all of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm going to switch back over to social media. There's a question from Tim. Placid Avenue, there's been many emails that have been sent since the last town hall to the councilman's office and Mandy in the county executive's office. DPW has agreed that work is needed, but they will not commit to it being done this year.
What area was that? I didn't hear.
Placid Avenue. Placid Avenue.
Yeah, that's it, in Parkville.
So thank you for asking the question. As I mentioned before, we're proud to be doing record funding for road resurfacing and traffic calming more than ever before. But I am not familiar with that specific request, so I don't know if DPW is on and/or if it was Mandy and OCE or someone else who's been having those conversations and can provide any updates, or we can follow up with the constituent.
Good afternoon, Mr. CE. It's DeAndrea Walker. I am not aware of the request. We are in the process of looking at coming up on our repaving season. I would ask that the request be submitted to Christina, and we will take a look and see where it falls in our repaving schedule.
Hi, Director Walker and County Executive. It is Mandy. I'm happy to be here, and just wanted to let you know that Christina Shoemaker is on it, and we have been in contact with Mr. Tim Castling to let him know that Placid Avenue is on our resurfacing list, and it looks like that they have let him know that it is hoping to be done within 2 years, but again, there are many factors that do alter the order that the roads are completed. So we have shared with Mr. Castling that Placid Avenue is on schedule to be resurfaced, and I will keep in contact with him with any other updates.
Thank you, Director Walker.
Yeah, the 3rd district is larger than Baltimore City in land area, and under this administration, there's been the program to repave and repair our roads has been unprecedented. And I'm glad to hear this about Placid, that it is on the calendar to be repaved. I think that if I let you know which roads have been repaved in the district, you'd be shocked because the list is very long. And this is after the 3rd district has been basically ignored prior to this county executive. So anyhow, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Madam Director. We'll move on to the next question from Erica. I believe we have some safety concerns at Cromwell Valley Park. While my 1-year-old daughter and I were playing in our driveway, a person parked in the grass next to my house to access Cromwell Valley Park. When he got out of his car, he let his dog out of the car without a leash. The dog was running on our property. When I reminded the man of the park rules surrounding leashing dogs, the man started getting aggressive and yelling at me. I wish I could say this was an isolated incident, but only 3 months ago we had the almost same exact situation with another park goer getting aggressive, cursing, and using threatening behavior while coming onto my property. These are the exact reasons that myself and my neighbors have been fighting for years to end public parking near our homes. I'm asking again for you to please not allow for parking in this area, since this is a public safety issue that needs to be addressed.
I assume that you're talking about some of the communities along Providence Road. Mm-hmm. We have certainly gotten a lot of inquiry about this. Mm-hmm. We've met with the director of Rec and Parks, with the officials at the park, and indeed it is a problem. And we need a solution to protect those people who live there, and at the same time provide areas for people to park who want to use the park itself. There was talk of There's a church for sale. There was talk of buying that church and using that piece of property as an entrance to the park. But the church is going to be sold to someone else, apparently. So this is a very, very sensitive issue in our district. And I'm working toward a satisfactory conclusion. And, the neighbors along Providence Road need to keep up the pressure on the county to do the right thing in this area.
And Councilman, I'll just echo and say we're committed to doing that. Erica, I've got a 5-year-old daughter, so we certainly want you to feel safe and your family to feel safe and cared for. While not, we can do both, right? We can take care of our residents and let you feel safe and not threatened, and also find ways to creatively ensure that we're keeping our amenities open to the public. So we look forward to working with you. I'm sure Director Johnson does as well. And we thank you for the feedback. We'll be in touch.
John, in fact, we're having problems with the Gunpowder Park and Moncton Road and other areas in northern Baltimore County because people are now staying home and not vacationing. They're using our park resources in northern Baltimore County and the Patapsco Park, etc. And there is a committee, and I'm on it, to try to work out the problems of parking and also the misuse of the park itself. People go tubing. There's the bike trail. There's other recreational facilities there. But unfortunately, there's a small minority of people that are actually damaging the park. And so we're looking into ways to deal with that as well. If you take a look at films of Moncton Road and others at the height of the season, they're totally blocked. Children are walking in the middle of the road. Cars are in the middle of the road. It is a real problem. And we're working very hard to solve this problem. The number of people that are using Gunpowder Park and Patapsco has increased from last year by 250%. And obviously, the state parks we're not ready to deal with this. So we do have issues just like the one along Providence Road, and we're working to solve them.
Thank you, Councilman. This will be the final question of the evening, and then I will turn it over to the county executive and councilman for their final remarks. This question comes in. The NCR Trail is one of the crown jewels of Baltimore County. The trail has been extremely popular with residents of Baltimore County during times of the pandemic. Expanding the trail to link it with the Jones Falls Trail in the city would not only increase its accessibility, but also release pressure on the Ashland Road parking and Moncton Station parking. The county has talked about conducting a feasibility study for connecting the Torrey C. Brown Trail to the Jones Falls Trail for years, but it has not yet materialized. Can you commit to conducting the feasibility study in the upcoming year?
Sachin, thanks for all that you do in our communities and for the question. I do want to let Director Johnson take this last question we have here, but just before I do, to say, we are a big believer in long-term and master planning. I have one of the many places where I've challenged Roz and her team in Rec and Parks is to make our resources more connected. And I believe that is part of her plan for the year ahead, but I will let her answer specifically what that process will look like.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. As I mentioned earlier, and I alluded to our master planning process for the entire county that will look at trails, parkland, neighborhood parks, pocket parks, regional parks. So we'll look at that across the board. But our team works very closely with Ms. DeAndrea Walker's team in DPW that's responsible for the pedestrian biking and hiking trail commission. And so we will, one of the things the county executive asked us not to do is pass the buck. So we will work collectively as a team in order to address the trails and the connectivity in the county. But please make sure when you get the survey that you answer all the questions to your interest. We will make sure that it's a statistically valid survey and that we get everyone's input and feedback on what we're going to do. But we will certainly work together as far as this trail and other trails to connect them throughout the entire county so that we do have a connected county and we do have many amenities for residents here to use. Thank you, Mr. CE.
Sachin, I certainly appreciate your efforts in this area. It's very, very challenging. And it's my hope that we can expand on the biking opportunities in Baltimore County. And, I live in Ashland, so I see the effects of the overcrowding and use of the hike bike trail. And if indeed this connection will help reduce the parking situation, that adds another plus to this proposal. So again, thank you very much for all you do. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. County Executive, would you like to close with your closing remarks?
Sure. Thanks, Pete. And thanks again to everyone in District 3 for coming out tonight and being part of our virtual town hall on the budget. I want to thank Councilman Katz for his partnership these many years, both before we came to Baltimore County and while serving together. He's been a great advocate for your communities, and we look forward to working with you and him and our directors who all showed up tonight. Thank you, leaders of the departments. We look forward to working with you to continue building a better Baltimore County for Northern Baltimore County, for District 3, and for all of Baltimore County. So really appreciate everyone coming out. Just remind you that please make sure you keep taking care of yourselves, wear your mask, practice social distancing, get your vaccine when you can. Councilman Katz, I'll turn it over to you for any final remarks. We just want to thank everybody again for coming out tonight.
I want to thank everyone as well for coming out this evening. I need to say that this administration has been the most open and transparent of any administration in recent history. And that is really a step in the right direction. In prior administrations, even trying to get information was like pulling teeth. And I appreciate the openness again of this administration and willingness to sit down and discuss the issues in front of us. I'm very happy every single issue that was brought up tonight. I thought to myself, oh, I hope somebody brings this issue up or that issue up, because they are indeed very important. The only issue that was not brought up, Mr. County Executive, was the need for a senior citizen center in Hereford. And again, recreational facilities, indoor, outdoor, and Delaney High School. These are the priorities we have in the 3rd District. And again, I appreciate the cooperation between the 3rd District and the administration. It is really appreciated. And I look forward to your budget and hopefully the funding of all of them. Why not? I think they all need funding. And so hopefully that will what's going to be in your budget when you introduce it. What is it? April, right after the legislative session. So, and I want my constituents to know that as soon as the COVID pandemic is close to being over and we're allowed to have live meetings, I'm going to do that. If it doesn't come soon, I'm going to have virtual meetings like this one. And no, Mr. County Executive, we're not going to be talking behind your back. So if you if you want to participate, you're more than welcome. So that, because I'll tell you, during the CCMP process, I missed the input of constituents. And when I say the input, I mean, I know the county executive agrees, it's much better to talk to people in person, see them in person. But this is a way to communicate. It's not preferable, but at least it's an option and a vehicle that does work. So again, I want to thank everybody for their participation. The 3rd district, the people of the district have never been shy in expressing their concerns and desires. And please continue to not be shy, because we need to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Wade. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. See you soon.